Welcome to PENSDOWN. On this program, we turn the news reporters and news presenters into newsmakers. We tell the storyteller stories, journalism journeys. That's the single item on this agenda. Today, I have been joined by a colleague. He is currently the sports editor for pulse.com.gh, that is Pulse Ghana. He's a product of the Ghana Institute of Journalism, who has for the past 7 years been actively involved in online journalism. His work has predominantly been about written journalism, and he's had the privilege to write for a number of international portals too. They include the UK-based These Football Times and World Soccer Magazine, and the South Africa-based New Frame, Germany-based DW, as well as Qatar-based Al Jazeera network. Joining me today is my colleague, Emmanuel Ayamga. Thanks for joining me on PENSDOWN.
Thank you very much. It's glad to be
Right,
here.
right. First of all, how did you discover the journalist in you?
Okay. So unlike some people who say they knew from the beginning, or they knew from their childhood that they were destined for some professions, with
Mm,
mine, I at some point I knew I wanted to be in journalism, but
mm.
I didn't really know exactly which part of journalism I wanted to do.
Okay.
So I remember when I was in late in my JHS, which was my JHS 2 and 3, at the time when
Mm,
we closed from preps or from classes, I'd have my pen and then put it at the mouth of my colleagues and be like, let me interview you for something, and then like we'll be doing that. We'll be joking. But
yes.
all my life, I thought I'd be a doctor or I'd end up in a hospital working as a lab technician or doing something in the hospital, because most of my teachers who taught me right from the first day I stepped in crèche thought I was a brilliant student, and I was somebody who would do well as a doctor.
Mm,
And that was what my father and my mother kept telling me. They were like, Ima, you will be a doctor, you'll be a doctor. So I had that in mind. So even if
mm,
I had any ideas of maybe becoming a journalist or doing something in media, I felt it
mm.
would have been years after I had already accomplished whatever I wanted to do in the hospital. But
Okay.
then along the way, things changed, and I ended up doing journalism.
Will you say journalism pays? Does it pay?
I don't think it pays as much as it is supposed to. I mean,
Mm,
if you compare journalism in Ghana to journalism in Europe or in other places, I think in Ghana it doesn't really pay as much as it's supposed to. But I also think that there are people who have really, I mean, earned their flowers, and that means they are earning as good as their counterparts elsewhere. So it's not really all everybody that earns as much. I mean, I think majority of the journalists in Ghana do not earn as much as they are supposed to, or they are not being paid their worth. But I think there
mm.
are a few also who are really being paid about.
In these 7 years you have done journalism, a lot of your colleagues have abandoned the ship. Attrition in journalism is so high. From where you sit, what do you think is accounting for this state of affairs?
Again, I think it's the low wages that are being paid in the
Mm,
sports journalism industry. I mean, journalism across board in Ghana, like I said earlier, I mean, there are a lot of people who are not being paid their worth. So normally when an opportunity comes in another industry, because even for me, as you work in the space, you meet people. You meet
mm,
people who are into PR, you meet people who are into communication, you meet people who are into brand management, people who are in social media management and all that. So as you meet people, I mean, some people will also identify your expertise in these fields, because
mm,
you are somebody, you write, you go for events, some people host events and all that. So you create a niche for yourself. So when it
mm,
happens that some of the companies or brands that you work with later come back and say, okay, because you've done A and B for me, and I think you have a potential in that field, join me. And they put
mm,
forth an amount that is bigger than what you are currently earning, or even twice or thrice the amount you are currently earning at your media organization. Definitely, there'll be the temptation to jump and then join there,
mm,
because ultimately, what everybody works for is the money. I mean, there's
mm,
passion and all that, but at some point, you'd get to an age where maybe you might think you haven't made enough money from the profession that you are in, even though you love it. So when
mm,
the chance comes for you to jump ship and then join another field that pays more, definitely many people will consider it. So I think that's the main factor
Mm.
that has to do with people moving from the journalism space.
How has social media changed the face of journalism practice? You've done 7 years. If I take it backwards, you are looking at sometime 2016.
Yeah.
Between 2016 and now, we are talking about a number of things that would have changed as far as the practice of journalism is concerned. How is social media redefining the frontiers of journalism?
I think social media has been a massive game changer. I mean, for me personally, I don't work for a print media or even a radio station or a TV station. I work for a digital media platform. Pulse.com.gh is one of the leading digital media platforms in Ghana currently. You can mention the top two digital media organizations in Ghana without mentioning Pulse. I mean, I think Pulse started it.
Mm,
Pulse was like the revolution of digital media in Ghana. And so I
mm,
rate social media very, very highly. I don't know if we'll come to how I joined journalism again, but
yeah.
just to give you a brief um, point on how like I came to become a member of Pulse. I remember when
Mm,
I joined as an intern in 2020, before the 2016 elections. I was an
okay.
intern then. I was in level 200 in GIJ. And when I
Mm,
joined, at the time, I had a Twitter account. I've always had a Facebook account because Facebook was the first social media platform that I joined. That was
yeah.
late 2009, 2010, thereabout. So I
Mm,
always had that. I was not on Twitter. And then Twitter was developing. By 2016, Twitter was like huge on news. So I remember when I joined, at the time, Godfred Akutu, I don't know if you know him,
I
on
know him
CT.
very well. Akoto Boafo, yes.
Godfred Akutu was the editor-in-chief of Pulse at the time. So when I
Mm.
entered the newsroom as an intern, I was speaking to the guys, and one of them asked me, "Are you on social media?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Where?" I said, "Facebook." And it was like, "Are you on Twitter?" And I said, "Oh, Twitter, yeah, I don't enjoy Twitter." So, and it was like, "Don't let Akoto hear this." And at the time, it sounded so intimidating and funny because had I told Akoto that I wasn't a fan of social media, probably he would have gone off because at the time he knew what social media could do to someone's career. And
Yeah.
looking back 7 years from then, from that day to now, social media has done a huge job for me because,
Mm,
like you read in my profile, I have gone
yes.
on to write for a couple of international portals like Al Jazeera, like the World Soccer Mag, like New Frame. And it was because of social media that I got those opportunities. I mean, most of
Mm,
these editors were people that I met, they read my work. And I take social media very seriously. If you go on my profile, for instance, you see a profile that I've done an online profile of some of my best articles. So I always say that my CV is on social media. You know, my CV is not something. Of course, if there's a job that I have to apply with my CV, I'll be able to write and then send it. Or I have a CV
mm,
that I've prepared that has a catalog of everything that I've done in my short-term career. But then, if I've made myself a point of reference to the extent that you don't need to even see my CV to know what I can do or what I have done.
yeah.
If you go on
Yeah.
my Twitter page, for instance, you see my portfolio, a website that links to my website, my general portfolio. And when you go there,
Mm,
you see some of my best work. So I don't need to even tell you. So if I fit the
mm,
criteria for whatever you are looking for, the moment you read my portfolio online or you type my name and you see my portfolio, you would know that, okay, oh, Iman has done A, B, C, D stories. He has written for A, B, C, D websites, and you know what I'm about. So social
yeah.
media is huge. I mean,
Mm,
previously the news used to break on radio and TV first. Currently, the news breaks on social media first before it even gets to radio and TV. Because, for
yeah.
instance, in my father is not a huge fan of social media because he's in his 60s.
Mm,
And in that time, the dailies were the main source of news. So he's still
yeah.
a graphic man. He buys his
Mm,
daily graphic every morning. He buys
that's
his
right.
Miracle. He buys all those. He's not really a fan of social
Mm,
media because his era was different. But in this era, everybody has a smartphone. And if, for instance, there's a shooting somewhere in Cape Coast, the first story that you see would be from a phone recording. Not even
yeah.
because journalists don't know and they haven't gotten there yet. So the
Yeah.
story will be broken via somebody, a community journalist who was there and used the phone to record. That video will go viral, but the Daily Graphic cannot have it until tomorrow morning, which is Monday.
That's right.
And before Monday comes, I, who is social media savvy, would have read it and known even the details of whatever happened in the shooting, probably before my father gets it tomorrow, because he'll be waiting for the Daily Graphic to report it.
Yeah.
But so that is why currently, even all the traditional media houses, Daily Graphic has graphic online, Telespray has
Mm,
TV News, City FM has citynewsroom.com,
yeah.
Joy FM has my Joy Online. So you see, they are all trying to migrate then take it to
Yes.
her again. So when a story breaks and before they report, if for instance there's a breaking story right now, it's a
Mm.
Sunday. Newspapers don't come out on Sundays.
Yeah.
And then maybe the news will have to be read at 6 p.m. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean if there is a breaking story, Major Online will not report it or Three News
That,
will not report it. They will have
that's
to.
true.
And so that is where
Mm.
social media comes in. I mean, it helps
Mm.
because when these
Mm.
stories are done, they will be shared on Twitter, they will be shared on Facebook, they will be shared on Instagram and everywhere. So social
Mm.
media is, and for me, and for especially for people like us who write, because everything we operate is, I mean, I do online journalism. Like I said, I don't write
Mm.
for a newspaper.
Yeah.
I write for a website.
Mm.
So where my story will be showcased wouldn't be on a traditional media platform. You wouldn't even hear
Mm.
my voice on radio or see me on TV. But
Mm.
it is my byline on a story that sells me and who I am. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think social media has been a great deal to my career.
Africa has produced, or rather, social media has produced richer bloggers in Africa than richer journalists. Are we not concerned that journalists, is there something we missed out? Were we too skeptical from the beginning? Or what is it that the scarcely untrained people have been able to do to better their economic lot that we are not doing?
Again, let me come back to what I said earlier. I think
Mm.
traditional media was a bit late and reluctant to join the social media or the digital media train. I mean, I
Mm.
think most of these traditional media, until recently, GTV is now doing very, very well. But I think
Yes.
they were sleeping. I mean, when digital
Mm.
media started in the 2015-2016 era, when more private, because there were more private websites. Currently, there are more even private blogs and websites
That's
than
right.
there are TV stations and radio stations. But these
Mm.
people already had the fans or the followers or the
Mm.
audience because I grew up watching TV3, I grew up watching GTV, I grew up watching Joy.
Mm.
And when Joy created this, when they came out with this digital TV stations and all that, I grew up
Mm.
watching all of them. I think the traditional media were a bit late to join the train. But
Mm.
for me, I don't subscribe to the school of thought that if you are not a trained journalist, you
Mm.
can't be a great journalist. I mean, there are a few journalists in Ghana who weren't really trained in journalism because you see, journalism is I see it more as an art. So when you first have to be talented in the field that you want to be in, and then you apply the expertise that you have. And journalism is such it's so artistic that it's able to accommodate expertise from everywhere. So if there's somebody who is an expert in banking, that expertise can be brought into finance journalism, and
Yes,
that person
business
wouldn't need
journalism.
yeah that person would be a business, and the person wouldn't even need the person wouldn't need really to go to journalism school to become a business journalist. But the
Mm.
ethical part of it is very important. The moment the person is able to grasp the ethical part of the job, that business person, the person with a banking background, could become an excellent business journalist. Same
Mm.
applies to health journalism. If there's any doctor or somebody from with a background in the humanities or with a background from health, and the
Mm.
person can write very well, that person can transfer those skills into health reporting and would fit, provided the
Mm.
person has, I mean, lowered the person's self to learn about the ethics of the job and is ready to stick by them.
Mm.
So I don't necessarily think being not being trained would make you a bad journalist. But I think you need to make the effort to be able to stick to the ethics of the job.
Mm. These years, what would you say stands out as the most challenging assignment for you?
Um, because I'm mostly a storyteller,
Mm.
which one has been challenging? Not really, not really. I think setting up interviews are a bit because I did a story last month for
Mm.
DW, which was on cerebral palsy football in
Okay.
Ghana.
Mm.
Um, myself, I didn't even know there was a cerebral palsy football team in Ghana.
Wow.
I was
I'm
reading
even
about
just hearing that.
yeah. So I was reading the Guardian and then I saw a story about women who were playing cerebral palsy. I'm like, I've been a football fan like since I was a kid. And I don't even know there's something like cerebral palsy football.
Wow.
And you know, most of the guys from the West or in Europe, they pay particular attention to disability sports. In
Mm-hmm.
Ghana, most of our
Yes.
disability sports are not really thriving because they have so many problems from internal
Yes.
politics to lack of
Poor
funds to
funding. Yes.
a lot of things. So when I realized there was that, I was like, okay, let me see if there is anything like that in Ghana first.
Mm.
So I went about doing my research and I discovered there was just one cerebral palsy football club in Ghana, just one
Mm.
in the whole of Ghana. So I did my research again and I realized, okay, we used to have a cerebral palsy national football team, just like we have the Black Stars, which is the national
Okay.
football team males. That was a cerebral palsy football team actually. But then because of what again what the kind of problem that I listed, there's been internal wrangling with the Cerebral Palsy Football Association, which is also there. Which was also a surprise to me when I found out. I said,
Mm.
okay, let me try to reach out to the people. And because I am told they are president of the Cerebral Palsy Football Association in Ghana, her tenure is already has lapsed for like 2, 3 years
Mm.
now. There hasn't
Okay.
been an election, but she still holds herself as president. But I said, okay, let me then try to, because if I go to her, some of the association members might say she's not their president because her tenure has what elapsed. So I
Yeah.
wanted to go directly to whoever was involved in cerebral palsy. So I located the one club, which is
Mm.
Ayawaso Cerebral Palsy Football Club, which was in
Okay.
Nima. So I went to Nima. I tried to set up an interview, and in the beginning it was difficult because we kept postponing the interview, and the
Mm.
deadline for the story was I had a 3 week period. At first it was 2 weeks, but I couldn't finish reading, so I had to go and request for an extension from the editor from
Mm.
GW, and luckily they granted me.
Mm.
And after everything, we were able to meet one day. Even on the day, I think the forces were working against me with the story because on the day that we were supposed to, I was supposed to have the interview. I don't know what happened, but that morning when I woke up, the sun was very bright, the sun was shining. The moment I was in the car going, it started raining heavily. I had to make a stop at the Accra Technical University. I had to stop over
Mm.
there. Once I made a stop, I don't know what happened. I was also bleeding from my nose. I don't know that day everything was just not working for me. I
Wow.
was I was bleeding from my nose all through that morning. And my handkerchief I was having was so soaked in blood.
Mm.
Because whenever I clean and then the blood would drip down again. I clean the blood drips down.
Wow.
It had never happened to me. It was like that until I met them at the Independence Square. So when I
Mm.
went there, the team were training and I met them. It was they were the ones who rather helped me because by the time I got there, my shirt was stained with blood, my handkerchief was so stained with blood, and I had
Wow.
nothing else to clean my blood. So luckily they had a tissue in the chairman of the club's car. He had a full tissue, so he gave it to me, and like I used one of the tissues to choke my nose
Mm.
until the blood stopped, and then we had our interviews and everything, and then I filed the story. So I think in terms of challenges, I wouldn't say hindrances have been there too
Yeah.
much. But the moment I'm able to start at sometimes because I don't really know a lot of people in the sports industry. When I say a lot of
Okay.
people, I don't mean like I am mostly when I have to set up an interview, I don't have the direct link to those I want to interview. So I go
Yeah.
through colleague journalists and sometimes
Mm.
other people. So
Yeah.
for instance, I want to do a story on something. I'm like, okay, who is the best person? Okay, let me call this guy. And I have a lot of friends who are like really know these people. So
Mm.
sometimes I have to use them and okay, do you know this guy? This guy. So call, and finally I get to the person. And sometimes it's difficult because if you're on a deadline, you call and say, okay, I can't help you, but let me also call this person and see. So you have to be waiting. And you need
Mm.
to be careful not to pressure the person too much. Because if
Yes.
somebody says, wait for me, I'll get back to you, and you are
That's
in a
right.
hurry, you see every 30 minutes you want to call and ask like, oh Charlie, the thing I told you, how far? And then it becomes like you are bugging the person and all that, but it's not part of the job. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I understand you. Um, if we are to roll back the hands of time 10 years, will you still take the same path of journalism that you have chosen?
Oh yes, I will. I will. I didn't even tell you the story of how I landed here. Do you want me to take you back
Go
there?
ahead, please. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So you see, when I was in level 200, I went to GIJ, the Ghana
Yes.
Institute of Journalism. So when I was in level
Mm.
200, we're there and we're like, because personally, I've always liked writing.
Mm.
I've always liked writing. I mean, if you speak to any of my teachers who taught me essay, you would not beat me in English. You would not beat me in
Wow.
social because these were subjects that required us to express ourselves.
That's
And I've
right.
always liked to write. Always. It has always been with me. Maybe myself, I didn't really realize it until maybe late in my teenage years. But
Mm.
I've always been like one of the best essay writers in any class that I've been in. So you might,
Mm.
and like, I'm not around, I'm not one of those you would say, a child would say, okay, this guy is good in the reading subject, but he's not really good with maths. I've always been
Okay.
good in like every subject like that. But then when it comes to the reading ones, I've always been exceptional. So in
You
terms of
mean
my
you were good at reading and good at maths at the same time?
yeah, I've always been good in all those things. Yeah,
In fact, I'm
I've never been
hearing
that
that for the
one-sided
first
student.
time. I'm hearing that for the first time because I was also very good at reading. But when it came to maths, it was like a World War situation for me.
Yeah, and I had so many classmates who were like that. I had so many
Mm,
who were like so good in maths, but when it came to English and social, they struggled. And I had
yeah.
some people who were really good in the reading subjects, but then when it came
Mm.
to the maths, they really couldn't do well. But then I was an all-round student.
Oh,
But
great.
the reading ones were like, for instance, English and social. They weren't subjects that I needed to learn. Whilst I might spend time learning about mathematics, because when I went to SHS, like I said, I did science, I
Mm,
did biology, physics, chemistry, and then e-maths. I might
mm,
spend time reading chemistry, and I never even so something I never even learned because something
mm.
like social always came at my fingertips.
Okay.
English, because you needed to have a bit of reading to understand. I
Mm,
read a bit, but
mm,
I was always an all-round student. That was me. So when I was in level 200 in GIJ, there
mm.
was this opportunity for us to do an internship. So I was like, okay. And when I entered GIJ, like I've never said it, but I wanted to be a journalist, but I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. And I remember in level 100, one of our lecturers was like, in journalism, the field is so broad. If you don't take it, it will swallow you. So he was like, and I thought journalism was all about being on radio and TV. I didn't even know there
Yes.
were producers, there were videographers. So there were so many people, technicians, so many.
Yes.
So now when the day after that lecture, I was like, so what exactly do I want to do? Like, because
Mm,
now we've been open to several fields within journalism.
mm,
And I was like, okay, so what exactly do I want to do? And mind you, I used to be I'm still very shy, but I used to be
mm.
very shy. I think it's better now. And because of my
Mm.
shyness, I do not like being on camera. I
Okay.
think probably one of the long term, one of the reasons why like I've ended up writing rather than doing anything in
Mm.
radio or TV because I'm very shhy. So I was
Mm.
like, so where do I end up? I'm like, okay. So when the internship opportunity came, they took us to GBC for a 2 months internship. That was in level 200. And when
Mm.
we went, they were like, where do you want to be? I said, I wanted to be with the sports guys. And they were like, nah, that place is choked. So they put me in the GBC newsroom. And
Okay.
the GBC newsroom, both for GBC radio and then for
And
GTV,
TV.
they are in the same room. But
Yes.
just
Yes.
you are one big room, and then the
Yes.
radio guys are on one side, the TV guys are
Mm.
on the different side. So you could see the radio guys, you could see the TV guys. So I was meeting most
Mm.
of the TV guys and then everything as an intern. So that was where it started. I remember when we went the first day, when we went, because they didn't send me to, and I've always wanted to be a sports writer, but then they took
Okay.
me to the main newsroom. So I was like, hey,
Mm.
can I cope? Because I was there with three other ladies, two from GIG and then one from UCC, but
Okay.
we're all journalism students.
Mm.
I'm like, can I cope? I'm like, and normally when I'm faced by challenges, I tell myself that whoever I'm there with, if those people can do it, then it means I can also do it. And I always
Mm.
tell myself, even if I'm there with three people, if two are better than me, I need to make sure that I'm not the last. I'm better than one, at least one person. I told myself, no. Although I'm an intern and I haven't really done this major news thing before, I mean, so,
Mm.
certainly we've learned about the basics of journalism in my class.
That's
What
right.
the only thing I needed to do was to read around whatever I was going
Mm.
to cover. But even in the beginning, we weren't allowed to go on radio.
Okay.
We weren't. As interns, we were only you would go and file a story and then you come back, you write your report and everything, you submit it, and then somebody else will read the report on radio. So you see a story that was done by me, but then somebody
Mm.
reads it and it's like so. There was one day I remember the first assignment that we went on. They
Mm.
took us to court. They
Wow.
took us to court to go and become court correspondents.
Yeah.
So and it's so funny. When we went, I'd never been to court. And I think that was like the first time I was in court. Until now, I haven't
Mm.
returned to court to go and do anything. So when we went there, we didn't at the time we didn't even know when you go to the court, there's court one, court two, court three. I mean, there are
Mm.
levels. And some of the when you most of the court correspondents know it. So when they say court one, oh, court one deals with maybe domestic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Court two deals with maybe theft. Court three
Mm.
deals with there are those divisions. But
That's
if you
right.
are not a court reporter, it's difficult for you to know how
Mm.
those things work. So we
Yeah.
didn't know. And then they gave us a number of one lady who was their main court correspondent. She was supposed to guide us.
Mm.
But when we went there, she wasn't in yet. So what we did was that we just went to sit somewhere at the court. And we're there, and then we went so early. We're there, and then around 8:30, the court started, proceedings started, and people started coming in. Everybody was just watching us, and we're like, what have we done? So we weren't understanding why people were watching us like that. Apparently, where we were sitting was for where the criminals were supposed to sit. It
You
was
were
so funny.
already the
So
dog.
we were there, and then people were entering, and we were looking at us with some way. Then the judge entered, and the clerk was like, "What are these people doing over here?" And then we were like, "Oh, we came to cover." And she was like, if you are here as a journalist, you need to inform me first, and I'll show you where to sit. And then they told us where we were sitting was for the criminals, or for the suspects. Sorry, let me not use
The
criminals because they hadn't even.
suspects, that's right.
Yes, so that's the word, suspects.
Yeah.
So they took us out of that side and then gave us another place to sit. Everybody was just laughing at us before, and the judge was just looking at us and smiling. Then we made another mistake. The moment the proceedings started and they were reading the dockets of the suspects, I removed my phone to record. Another mistake I made that first day. So the judge looked at me and laughed and shook their head. She was a lady and she was like, what is this guy doing? And I
You
remember
were
I
coming
told
close to contempt.
I told you I was there with three other ladies, two from
Yes.
CIG, one from UCC. We
Yes.
were all scared at that point because we were scared that they might arrest us because now we know we have breached the rules of the court. So
That's
while the
right.
judge was laughing, I didn't find it. I was sweating and I was so scared. Apparently, the three ladies were also very, very scared. So now the judge asked them, "Why are you recording? Who told you to record?" So they know who would speak now. We were all quiet, and I said, "Okay, since I'm the guy among them, let me say something." I'm like, "Oh, we were sent by GBC, we are here to cover proceedings." And she was like, this is not how to do it. When you come, you speak to me, because probably the case might have come before her more than 3 or 4 times. So
Yeah.
if you have not been there the previous times, you need
Yeah.
to be briefed about how the case fared.
To get
So
the background.
there's a sheet where they'll give it to you. They've
Mm.
summarized whatever happened in the previous sessions if you
Yeah.
weren't there. And we're like, oh, okay. So that was how my journalism career really started on the ground. Because that was when we went for the before the internship, I had never been in any newsroom. Never.
Mm.
Not even the
Wow.
radio GID. I never even entered that side before. But that was the
Mm.
first time I was in a newsroom and I had gone out to cover something. So
Mm.
we came back. And for everything we did, we came back. Whatever we came back with, the editor looked at it and then just canceled and was like, nah, this thing is wrong. But he just wanted us to have the experience of like
Okay.
going down there to cover a story. So I was
Mm.
like, this cut thing, I'll never forget it. But that was the beginning. And then so GBC radio, and then we started. I was put under Nathaniel. Nathaniel was also
Mm.
doing national service at the time. His name is Nathaniel Nati.
Okay.
He's currently with the
Okay.
GBC. So he
Mm.
was like my go-to person. He was mentoring me when I was at GBC. So when he was going on assignment, I would follow him. He would come back, show
Mm.
me how to cut the
Mm.
voices. Because at
Mm.
GIG, they had taught us to use I think it was Audacity. That was the app we were using to cut voices with.
Okay.
But then at GBC, they have this thing. The app they were using was Adobe Audition.
Okay.
So I had to learn that one too because that one is different from the Audacity.
Mm.
So
Mm.
he was teaching me how to use that to cut voices. And I remember the
Mm.
first day my story was played. It was so nice. I mean, I was just and like I said, because we are interns, they didn't allow us to go into the radio
Yeah, so someone else
because
will voice over.
someone would just voice over, and then at the
Yeah,
end they would be like, "There's a report by Emmanuel Ayamga." But then,
that's right.
if I was not an intern, I was supposed to be the one to read that report myself. So I'd end that
Mm.
report and be like, "There's a report by," and then I mention my name. But it was nice just hearing my name. I remember when I came, I told my mother, listening to GBC radio, my story was played. So we're there, and then she was passing, and then the story read, and she just passed at the right time when the reporter was like, "This was a report by Emmanuel," and then I was like, "Dah, I've made it."
I made this, Mama.
It was so nice. One of my highlights,
That's
seriously. That was the first time my
that's
story read on radio, and after that, at the point in the time, the editor was like, "What's his name? His name is Boss Higher. I think he's now retired. We used to call him Boss Higher at GBC. He was like,
mm,
"You are not good enough, so Nathan, don't go with him again." So every morning when I come to work in the morning, you see my
mm.
name. There's this notebook where they write the names of people who have assignments.
Yeah, assignment
They put it,
notebook.
yeah. So before you go home, when you come back in the morning, you go and open it
Mm,
and see if you have an assignment, you see your name assigned to wherever you are supposed to go. So every
mm.
morning I'll come and I'm like, "Oh, you are going here. I'm going to cover a program at Legon. I'm going to cover." So that was how I started. I started
Wow.
building confidence. Then
Mm.
after 2 months, it was over. So I had to just leave.
Go
So
back
when I
to
left,
campus.
I was like, oh, I had learned a lot here. Although I wasn't writing there, okay,
Mm.
because definitely you write because you're story, but then the
Yeah.
writing for radio is different. They are short,
Yeah.
short pieces.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. So I started to create my own blog.
Mm.
So I created my own blog while still in GIJ. And
Mm.
then I had this friend, Martin Thompson, who also came out with a newspaper on campus-based newspaper. So
Okay.
it was called the Smart Eye. So again, I was
Okay.
writing the sports. I was handling the sports category of that campus newspaper. We actually set
Mm.
that newspaper up to rival the main newspaper on campus, which was the communicator newspaper, which was for the
Yeah.
SRC.
Yeah.
So we set up the Smart Eye newspaper, which
Mm.
was more private than the one from the SRC. So
Mm.
that was when I started writing more and more and more. That was when I really, really started writing like journalism writing. I
Mm.
started writing for Smart Eye. Every now and then we'll produce a newspaper. We were selling them for 1 CD, one copy for 1 CD. We were running at a
Okay.
lot, but MTN was the one. MTN is Martin. Anyway, we used to call him MTN because his name is Martin Thompson in them. So we used to
Okay.
short it with MTN. So he was
Okay.
the one like financing the newspaper. So I was just filling it with articles and features and all
Mm.
that. So
Mm.
even when Smart Eye was over, I was like, nah, I need to continue writing. So I set up
Okay.
my blog on
Mm.
Blogspot. And I started going to, and I used to live at Latebi Okoshi,
Okay.
around Sukura area. So normally I didn't even need to take a car. I'd walk from my side to Dansoman to go and watch Liberty Professionals play
Okay.
at the Carolina Park in Dansoman. So when I go and watch them, I come back, I write my match report. Sometimes I use my student ID card to enter the media section. When they are done, I'm able to go and observe the press conferences and all that.
Mm. Mm.
I go inside, and then that was when I met Godfred Akuto.
Okay.
Godfred. I
Okay.
remember the first time I met Godfred, I was like, I'm a student of GIJ, and at the time Godfred was with Pulse. I was like, okay,
Oh.
I've been reading about Pulse, I've been reading, and I would like to write for Pulse Ghana. And then he was like, okay, take my card and call me. But Godfred is
Mm.
a hard man to get. I mean, even till now, he's somebody you rarely get on phone. Maybe by
Yeah.
text. If you text him, it's easier to get him on text rather than
Mm.
via phone. So and he told me the first day that it's hard to get. So if I want to call him, I should call him after 3 p.m. That is when I might get him. So I said,
Okay.
okay, fine. So I took um his number, his card. So
Mm.
I remember the first day I called him, was like, okay, you come back, you can come and cover our training sessions if you want to. And I'm like, okay, fine.
Mm.
I started covering Liberty. And at the time, Godfred was Liberty's general manager too.
Okay.
He was their general manager too at the time. So I'd go and
Mm.
cover their training, I'd go to their matches. And anytime he was there, and he came to know me. So anytime he was there, anytime
Mm.
I went to cover a game and he was there, I'd meet him and I'm like, oh, this is Emmanuel, the guy you met the last time. I was just trying to
Mm.
build an acquaintance.
Yeah.
And that was it. But at the point, I think our communication broke a bit. What brought me back to Godfred again and ended me at Pulse was I remember there was a time we were writing our exams and I was like, I'd learned, I wasn't going. So I said, okay, let me
Mm.
just enter the library and then let me write an article. That
Mm.
was that was 2016, before the election. And
Okay.
at the time, Liberty's best player was a player called Latif Blessing. He's
Mm.
now based in the US. And
Mm.
because I had covered Liberty the months before, I was
Yeah.
tempted to write an article about Liberty almost like every time. And I
Mm.
was like, this article, I wanted to make it more international.
Okay.
And I looked at, and I support Manchester United too in
Okay.
the UK. So I was like, okay, let me compare Latif, because Latif Blessing at the time was 17. And there was this United player who was also 17 at the time, whose name is Marcus Rashford, currently
Okay.
their number 10.
Yeah.
So I was like, and Rashford was coming up just around that time because
Mm.
he had been introduced by Louis. He had been introduced by Louis Van Gaal, who was the
Yeah.
coach at the time, and he was coming up.
Mm.
And then right after having his debut for United, England also called him at the end of the season. He even played at the 2016 Euros.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, how is it possible that a player from United just came up within a few months, he had played for United, he had excelled, and even gone on to play for England at that young age. Meanwhile, we
Mm.
have one here like Latif Blessing, who was the top scorer of the Ghana Premier League that season in 2017, and they didn't even call him for the AFCON that year.
Yeah.
So I was like, nah, I needed to write about this. I needed to. So I went to I took my laptop into the at the time I didn't really used to type directly on my laptop. I'd write
Yeah.
it with my handwritten
Mm.
articles. And then when I finished writing it, then I'll now type it. That's what I used to
Okay.
do. So I went into the library. My friends were learning, and I was like, let me finish the article before I start learning anything because I was learning and it wasn't going. I was so bored. So I wrote the article, wrote, and then I was done. And then when I was done, luckily for me, that same week, I joined Swag GIJ,
Okay.
which is the Sports Writers Association of
Writers
Ghana,
Association of Ghana. Yeah.
the GIJ wing, which was the student
Yeah.
wing. So I
Mm.
joined them and they were like, oh, come for our meetings and everything. I was like, okay, fine. So that week that I published the story on my blog. And normally
Mm.
when I publish a story on my blog, I share it, and my friends knew how good I was. Most of my
Mm.
friends that I went to school with, they are like my biggest fans. Because when I write a story, an article, I send it to them, they read and they praise me. So normally I
Yeah.
felt good anytime I wrote a story and then I share and they were like, hey, man, you write too. And I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it hadn't gone outside yet because it was within my small circle in school.
Okay.
The friends I
Mm.
was in class with, they were the ones when I write an article, I share with them. So at the point,
Mm.
because you can check the analytics, I will go into my blog
Mm.
space and then I'll see, okay, the article has been read by 15 people. And I'm like, oh, 15, that's fine. I know those 15 because they are my friends. They are the ones I've
Yeah.
shared with.
Yeah.
Because even if I share it in my class group, most of them will not even read it because
That's
probably they
right.
may not even trust that I'm a good writer or something. It's those that you know that will
Mm.
go and then read it and they will give me
Mm.
feedback. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll do with those 15. But then for the first time, that article, when I shared it in the SWAG, because the SWAG page is mainly made up of also most budding students,
Mm.
sports journalists. I went back and I was like, I saw over 200 reads. I'm like, hey, how is this possible? So my reads on my blog, when I checked out, it shot up from those 10 to 15 per article to 200 for that particular article on Rashford and then Latif Blessing. So I'm like,
Wow.
hey, then people are reading. So then when they put me in their group, they were like, oh, everybody was commenting me, this article is nice, this article is nice, it's nice. And I'm like, oh, wow. Then one person came and said, Godfred has commented and said he likes the article and he wants to know who wrote it. And I'm like, oh, Godfred, I even have his number. So I will not even wait for him to reach out. I would rather reach out to him and tell him he's the guy that wrote the article. So I remember texting him and I'm like, oh, Godfred, hi. This is Emmanuel, the guy you met the last time at the Carindov Stadium. And I said, I'm the one who wrote the article and I'm hearing that you liked it. And it was like, it is a nice article. So then I realized, oh, so he's now a fan. So then I put the idea to him that why don't you allow me come and intern at Pulse?
Mm. Mm.
And he was like, okay, when you vacate, you can come over. I said, okay, fine. And I was like, that was it.
Wow.
So, and that year, because it was before the 2016 elections, we vacated
Yeah.
very early because
Mm.
there are journalists who are practicing and still learning at GIJ.
That's right. That's
We
right.
vacated us very early so that people can go and prepare to cover
Mm.
the 2016 elections.
Yeah.
So, I think we vacated around 5th December. Nah, I think it was 2020 something of November. So we had more than like 2 weeks before the elections.
Okay.
So I went to Pulse that morning. I didn't
Mm.
even meet Prophet. It was like, oh, she introduced me to one lady called Betty Kankambwe,
Mm.
and
Mm.
then a guy called Kwame Boache. Kwame Boache is currently the head of editorial at Pulse. So I
Okay.
went and they were like, bring your CV. And I'm like, hey, I don't even have any CV anywhere oh, because everything I have is like writings that I've done on my on my blog. And there was this community radio called I think Amania FM, which was in Latibia Okoshi. That my
Okay.
friends would invite me. So I'll go there and then we'll do some it was a community radio. It didn't really go far. It was just within the
Mm.
Okoshi area. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So I just put together that I had done some a bit of mandatory at Amania FM, and then I put my
Mm.
blogspot link over there and told them I'm written a couple of articles like that. So the article that I wrote, the article I told you about, apparently was republished on the Pulse website.
Oh.
When God first saw it, he made them republish it on the Pulse website. So when I went, they were like,
Mm.
so Kwame was like, you are the one who wrote the article, and it was like, that article was really good. I'm like, oh, so they've
Mm.
heard of me who have been coming here. Like, that was good. Then they were like, so come, you can start work on Monday. And they gave me the rules of engagement for being an intern. I didn't even know
Mm.
internships used to pay because when I did my internship at GBC, they didn't pay me.
Yeah.
But at Pulse, they were paying me at the time. And I was like, oh
Mm.
wow, this is where I want to be because I've always wanted to write and
That's
I've been
right.
when I went there were so many great writers over there. Uh,
Mm.
Fifi Anaman was there.
Okay. Okay.
Fifi Anaman was there.
Yeah.
There was the late Thomas Freeman, may God bless his soul. He was also
Mm.
there.
Mm.
Godfred Akoto himself was there.
Yeah.
Muftar
Mm.
Nabila had just left.
Okay.
There was Isaac. There was Isaac as well. So there were so many of them that I'd been reading their work, but I hadn't met yet. But Fifi was like the
Mm.
biggest influence because I was a huge fan, and I still am a huge fan of Fifi. And he
Mm.
knows. because I used to read his work, and I'll read his work and I'm like, yeah, I wish I could write like this guy. So when I
Yeah.
went there and I realized, oh, so I was being like, I will not be working under Fifi. I'll be able to monitor how it works and learn from that. It was such a happy moment. So that was
Yeah.
how like I got into Pulse as an intern.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was supposed to be a 1 month internship thing. But when it was over, I was like, they were like, if you wanted to stay, you could stay. And I was like, okay, then I'll stay. So they kept on renewing my internship from level 200 till I completed school. And then I
Okay.
did my service over there too. And after the service, they employed me.
Wow. Now let me take you away from sports and get you a general pick a general perspective, your perspective on a general issue. There are a lot of politicians that are setting up media houses, the political ownership of the media. Are we caught in trouble as a country, as a fledgling democracy, or there is no cause for alarm?
Um, I think it's a double-edged sword because
Mm,
one, you want people to create jobs in a country.
that's
And
right.
if it would take privatization of the media for us to have media people who are paid really, really well and are given the finance to work, then I'm all
Mm,
for that.
okay.
Unfortunately, the downside is that if a politician invests in the media,
Mm,
then his main motive would be that anybody that works in that media house has to promote one, he the politician, and then his political party too.
yeah,
So, and that is what we are seeing with, I don't want to go into names, but if you look at most
that's
of
right.
the media houses that are affiliated to politicians, they
Yes.
mostly project the views of those politicians and their parties.
Mm,
But I don't think private media is really bad because if you
mm,
go to Europe and the West, most of the media houses are private.
mm,
Most of them. I mean, look at Fox.
yeah.
Fox is private, but I mean, they have the
Mm,
money.
mm,
And even some of the state-owned ones, like Al Jazeera, which is state-owned, but then they have a whole investigative wing, which is
yes,
independent from the state of Qatar.
that's right.
And I like the way the BBC operate because the BBC as an entity is different from the BBC as a news organization. I
Exactly.
mean, that is something they've had a distinction between for
Yes.
so when somebody from the BBC is being like indicted for something,
Mm,
the BBC as a newsroom. That's why the
mm,
BBC has recently when they put Gary Lineker on, they wanted to suspend him for him talking about some
yes.
of the
His
things that were
colleagues
happening.
reacted all over.
They reacted and they couldn't fire any of them because the
Yes.
BBC as a newsroom is different from the BBC as a board or
Yes.
as a government entity.
Yes. They've asserted, I think the newsroom has asserted its independence
Yeah,
away from the administrative wing of the
yeah. And then
setup.
even I think last year when there was this I've forgotten his name, this presenter who does he's an entertainment presenter, Tim Westwood.
Mm.
When there
Okay.
were raised
Yeah, yeah.
allegations against him, the
Mm.
BBC as a newsroom investigated it together with the Guardian, even though he
Yes.
was an employee, but they didn't
Mm.
investigate it as an employee, investigated, and then they even requested for a response from the BBC. So this
Mm.
is the BBC as a newsroom
Mm.
requesting for a response from the BBC itself as an entity. So they acted like two different, as if I'm working for a company, but then I'm
Mm.
not part of the company. So when
That's right.
there's an issue, I'm able to say, okay, I went to ask my bosses for a response and they didn't respond.
Mm.
So this
Yeah.
this this is what they said. And like I like that
Mm.
kind of distinction that they have. I don't think we have that here yet, but I think we'll go into it as time
Mm.
goes by. So I don't
Mm.
think private investment into media is necessarily a bad thing, but it
Mm.
becomes bad when the influence
Mm.
is put on whatever finance is being brought in because
Okay.
everybody wants to work independent. I mean, the media needs money. Most
Yeah.
of these investigative journalists need money to be able to carry out the stories that they do. It's
Mm.
capital intensive. I don't think it's cheap. And
Yeah.
media people need to be paid very well too. So if there's a private person who wants to invest in the media, I think it's welcome. But then the moment there is control and regulation
Mm.
of the content that goes out, it becomes some way.
On the back of this, will you buy into calls that journalists should be licensed?
No, I don't. I don't because the moment you license journalists,
Mm.
it will create a bigger monster than what we are seeing currently.
Mm.
You know, we want a free media, right? And
Yes.
we want a free media means even though journalism is not licensed, any proper media house can set its own in-house guidances that will lead to people getting employment.
Mm.
So, for instance, I don't think TV3 would put somebody who is ignorant about politics on their morning show to host it.
That's right.
Even if you haven't gone to journalism school, you need to have some level of experience or some level of education to be able to
Yeah,
host such shows.
that's
Because you
right.
can't be found wanting when you are hosting some of these politicians and you don't know what you are saying. So, like I
Mm,
said, the in-house guidelines are even more important than trying to regulate or license who should become
mm,
a journalist. The moment you
mm,
license, you know what it means? It means that the political class will begin to control who can be. It's just like the lawyers. I'm sure you've heard
mm.
about a lot of lawyers who are like, oh, they are qualified to become lawyers, but then the bar is frustrating them because maybe they are too
That's right.
vocal.
Mm,
So that is what will happen if you license journalism. Because there are people
mm.
who are very vocal right from even their school days. I mean, you can have an intern who is into investigative journalism and he will be very vocal, or she will be very vocal right from her school days.
Yeah,
The moment you bring in licensing, if that person has maybe exposed a lot of corrupt people or big people in this country, the moment that person goes for the license, the person is likely to be disqualified because people who fight against corruption, we know that people fight against corruption in this country. People they
mm,
fight back against them. So like, rather than I think there's the temptation to say okay, people might be reckless if you don't license it, which is true.
mm.
But the thing is that we will create a bigger monster if we license it because then we are putting we will be boxing our best journalists into the hands of again the elite, which we shouldn't
Yeah.
do.
Mm,
Because it will become like okay then because my father is Mr. A or Mr. B, no matter what I do, I know I'll pass and I'll become a
mm,
journalist. But because this
mm.
person doesn't know anybody, he might disqualify because his father is a nobody.
In fact, when I
Yes,
hosted
you get the point
Manasi
I'm going.
Azure Awuni here, he said that if we license journalists, people like him may never get a license
Which I
because,
agree to. Because
yes,
when I went to GIG, Manasseh is a legend. Everybody knows what he has done. He used to write,
exactly.
I'm told he used to write on the trees. He used to write and paste his writings
He
on the trees
littered
and all
his
that.
writings on the campus like
So,
some
and
graffiti.
I think he won GGA Journalist of the Year right from GIG,
Yes, he wasn't even
which
a
means
staff of any media house.
which means he was already like big when he was there. He was already
That's
like
right.
making things uncomfortable for people who were corrupt in this country. So imagine
Mm,
they were supposed to subject him to licensing. And these people know that this guy coming in will come and worry us and what we are doing. They would
mm,
have found ways to disqualify him. And I
that's
think
right.
most law students have gone through that.
Mm,
Most law students, plenty people have. There are people who have passed the bar in the UK or in other
mm,
countries, but they return to Ghana and they can't pass the bar in Ghana, not because they are not good enough, but just because there are some people who feel like, nah, these people don't deserve to be lawyers in Ghana. So
mm,
that gatekeeping,
that's
I think
right.
gatekeeping is important, but I don't think it has to do, licensing journalism will bring any positive impact to us. I think that
Mm,
the negatives of licensing journalism will be more. It will outweigh the positives.
mm. Let's seal this conversation off with your take on Solly. What do you make of it? I don't want to preempt anything with
I,
too much
I
talk.
remember I remember when I was in school and I think that was in level 300 when one of
Yes.
our lecturers was speaking about a topic on solid and it
Mm.
was like go for a program and you even eat and you drink water it is solid because at the time most of us in class had gone out we had done intention but we had gone out for programs before so probably everybody knew what solid was
That's
and people
right.
were like no, lecturer you can't say that it was such a funny class that day
Was it
but
Mr.
then I think my
Tanko?
opinion of well
Was it Mr. Tanko?
no it wasn't Mr. Tanku.
Oh, okay.
My
Okay.
opinion of Solid is that um I don't know. You see, when people go for programs and they're like, there are people who go for programs and they expect it actually.
Yes.
They
A
expect
sense
it
of
that
entitlement.
yeah, you are here, so you need to be given something. But it's not like that.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be like that. And
Mm,
again, you come back down to how people are paid. In my where I work, for instance,
mm,
there's this when you every year we update our in-house rules and regulations.
mm,
One of the rules is that if somebody gives you money that is above 100 cities,
mm.
you need to come and report it to your superior.
You must
That's okay.
declare.
You must declare it. And I think it
Mm,
works in other, not I don't know in Ghana, but I think it and because one where I will pause is not even though it's pause Ghana, the parent company is not in Ghana, it's in Switzerland. So
okay.
mostly they adapt most of the rules in most of the other markets to Ghana. So if you take something that is more than 100, you need to declare it to your superior. Otherwise, it might constitute the person like maybe sometimes it might not even be because the person wants to influence you.
Mm,
Sometimes you have a friend, and it happens a lot to me. Sometimes I have a friend, and sometimes I'm conflicted because sometimes you have a friend who is a musician. or know somebody who's a
Yes.
musician, he'll be like,
Yes.
oh, my friend just released a song. Can you publish it on your website for me?
Mm.
And it's like, okay. And the person is your friend, you are not even charging them. And it's like, okay, I'll give you something for credit. But make sure this story goes on your website because this is a song I want to like. And because the person is your friend, you're
Mm.
like, okay, let me publish it for the person. You might not even know what the person wants to give you in return.
Mm.
You see? But then, like I say, when it comes to the influence, that's the main part. I think the
Mm.
difference between a gift or whatever anybody wants to call it and solely would be the influence that it has on you. Because I mean, if you go for a program and somebody gives you 5,000, that is huge money. And
Yes.
nobody will give 5,000 CDs for like just publishing a story of music or a
Mm.
release or something. Now, it has to be something serious.
Yeah.
That's why people go for assignments and maybe somebody says something that is very damning. They come back and they're like, no, we can't publish this. Let's publish the other things that, but we'll not publish the main thing because that person has
Yeah.
probably an
Yeah.
envelope that will prevent him or her from doing his or her job. But
Yeah.
for me personally, I haven't encountered that. Seriously. I haven't
Mm.
really encountered anybody give me money to say that, okay, this is solid for you, so avoid A, B, C, D. Nah, it
Mm.
doesn't really happen to me. But
Mm.
again, I think if media houses are paying their employees very, very well, we will not even
Mm.
have this debate of solid because if the media is being paid well, their whole focus will be on their jobs. Currently, there are
Mm.
so many journalists in Ghana who are moonlighting. So many,
That's true.
many.
That's
So
true.
many. Some are not just even doing just journalism. Some are they have weekend jobs that they do. Some have
Yeah.
businesses that they run. So their
Yeah.
attention is very divided.
Mm.
Unlike elsewhere where you can be a journalist. I mean, there was I have a friend who one of his friends he had a BNFT, Business and Financial Times. One of his
Yeah.
friends, senior colleagues, currently works at Bloomberg, and it's like
Okay.
sometimes they can go 3 months, they do just one story, but he's being paid
Mm.
well. And that one story is not like a story that he'll do and say, maybe Mr. Steven GC said this or Mr. Emmanuel said
That's
this.
right.
It's a detailed story. So
Yeah.
these are stories that you spend weeks and months doing your
Mm.
research, interviewing people for it. So for instance, you finish and then you do a 2,000 or 1,000 word piece.
Mm.
But that's a story that when somebody knows that, okay, this is an original Bloomberg story. So when
That's
somebody
right.
goes to Bloomberg, the person knows he's not just going to find a 200 word article that has
Mm.
no background or no information. He's
Yeah.
probably going to get a story that is well researched and has
Mm.
sources, both primary and secondary sources in there. You get it. But in Ghana, Charlie, you go to where they're like media house, you are a writer, produce 5 or 6 stories a day. Sometimes
Mm.
you feel you have done 3 solid stories, there are 2 stories left. Maybe there's no correct story around, but because you have to
Yeah.
meet your daily quota, you'll be forced to do something. So for me, I
That's
think
right.
again, the bottom line is that media houses need to really do better when it comes to paying their employees. And when that happens,
Mm.
I think the problem of solid will be solved.
Mm. Emmanuel Ayamga, sports editor, Paul's Ghana. He has joined us today on PENSDOWN and he's giving us a walk through his journalism journey, some of the ups and downs he encountered, some lessons he has learned, his perspective on a number of issues that bother on the profession directly, among others. This has been PENSDOWN. Here, we give the microphone to the journalists and we turn them into the newsmakers. They are not the reporters or the presenters on this platform. We talk their journalism journeys. Senior, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me too.
Right. We'll be back next time with another edition where we'll have another colleague join us and then we will be talking their journalism journey. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.